demonstrating a reversal trading technique which is based on three indicators. This is of course to be used for intraday trades. However, one thing to note here is we will be using a time frame of 1 hour here, instead of smaller time frames. So as you can see that I have the chart open here. This is basically from kite from Zerodha. Of course, all these indicators are available on most of the broker terminals, so it doesn't matter which tool you use. So the first indicator that we'll be using here is moving average, basically the exponential moving average, which is of 200, length 200. Let me change the color to, let's say, violet here. So this is one of the indicators that we'll be using. The second indicator that we'll be using here is the super trend, right? So the super trend of I let the settings remain as the default one provided by kite, which is period is 3 and the multiplier being sorry, the period being 7 and the multiplier being 3. Okay, so now these are the two indicators that we'll be using. The third one being you know Ichimoku cloud. So Ichimoku cloud again, I wouldn't be changing any of the settings here. I would let it in default settings. So now for the people who will be using other trading terminals, these are the settings for the Ichimoku cloud. So I will not get into the details of what Ichimoku cloud is, etc. So I think there are plenty of resources available on the net which you can refer to, and then you can if you need more information on what Ichimoku cloud is, etc., you can look at those resources available on the internet. So now for this trading technique, as I mentioned, this is a reversal trading technique. What we look at as a prerequisite is the EMA of 200 and one of the bands of the Ichimoku cloud, in this case the upper band. There is some kind of confluence, which means I'm looking at a level which is, let's say, the difference between the EMA of 200 and the upper band of Ichimoku cloud is less than a percent, right? So in this case, for example, my Ichimoku cloud, if you look at it, the upper band of my Ichimoku cloud is somewhere between 1765 and my EMA of 200 is at 1762, which is very, very good. As I mentioned, generally the difference should be less than a percent, while if it's less than 0.5%, let's say, it is even better. So the confidence is pretty decent here. So in addition to that, what I'm looking for is my stock price is basically below my super trend. So as you can see here that currently the stock is the price of this particular stock is below the super trend. So this is just an indication. While I don't expect a confluence here, but here in this case there is also a confluence of super trend which is also at a similar level compared to, let's say, the Ichimoku clouds upper band as well as the EMA of 200, so which is basically an icing on the cake, right? So now how do I trade based on this setup? Basically what I look for is the price of this stock is hitting one of the levels of EMA or Ichimoku cloud. So here the point to note here is I mean the shorting level can be based on your own risk appetite. For example, in this case, the super trend will act as the first level of defense. EMA of 200 will act as a second level of defense, while the upper band of the Ichimoku cloud might act as the third level of defense, right? So now, depending on your own risk appetite, you can choose to short, let's say, uh, you know, uh, let's say at the level of EMF 200 or level of Ichimoku cloud, whichever might be your, technique or whatever might be your risk appetite. What we look at here is in terms of stop loss, we are looking at 1% of stop loss from the level of entry, right? So in this case, let's say that I take a trade near 1765. My stop loss would be somewhere close to 1782. Okay, so now as you can see here, SGF's Grasim, sorry, made a high of 1771, and then it came down all the way to 1718, which is a very good returns for an intraday trade. We are looking at close to 3% on an intraday basis, which is pretty decent. So as I mentioned, Ichimoku Clouds lower and upper band acts as a resistance here. The color here indicates that generally the stock is expected to go down. Um, as you see here, it had already crossed the low band of Ichimoku Cloud on the previous day, and this super trend indicator is basically you know pointing a downward momentum. So hence we took a short trade here near the levels mentioned, right? So now the same can be applied for long trades as well. Here you have an example of a long trade which is on Petronet. Um, so one interesting thing to note here is the Ichimoku cloud is already, I mean the stock is already closed above the Ichimoku cloud, and super trend is actually showing a upward momentum as you can see here, and my stock price of course is above EMA 200. So as you can see here on 29th, I had a long trade which was around 212, and then on an intraday basis it hit 215, which is again a very good return of more than 1.5% for an intraday trade. So basically what we are looking at here is roughly 1% of stop loss, and minimum of 1 is to 1 RR, and as I mentioned it can be 1 is to 2, 1 is to 3 depending on the setup. Like in previous case with Grasim short trade, we actually saw a return of almost 3% intraday returns. So it's a very very powerful technique. EMF 200 is considered by many as one of the good indicators which can be used to take a reversal trade. So here we are looking at a 1 hour time frame, but we are applying this trade on an intraday basis. So I think I would suggest, it's again a very good technique. People ask me like why so many methods, why there is no one method. So definitely there is no holy grail. It depends on the market conditions. It depends on the stock. For example, if the market is trending, you may not be able to apply a reversal trade. While if a market is sideways, you can probably apply a reversal trade. Likewise, some of the techniques can be applied on liquid stocks and not on all stocks. So there is a context why you have to apply or deploy different methods depending on the market conditions. While all of these methods which I've been talking about in my YouTube channel, I think they're quite powerful and very very high probability of winning. So I would rather let you to decide on the effectiveness of this particular method. Please, as I mentioned, always try to apply it on paper and do some paper trades before you get into the real trade. So good luck. Thank you.